All right, welcome to the Interruption with the Sarge, Ryan Sargento, and the only show that allows me to interrupt and nobody else. Today I have Mr. Alaba. He's an IT professional from Wisconsin. Thank you, Mr. Alaba, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. So you're the only one that gets to interrupt?
Now, I'm the only one that gets it. No, I say that, but you probably can interrupt as well. So,
All right,
uh,
cool, cool.
no, but today we're going to talk about with everything that went along this summer with George Floyd and um, the topic of race and police and so on and so forth, we're just going to kind of unpack that a little bit and get some perspectives from yourself, as a black man living in the United States. Um, so once again, I appreciate you being here. I know this topic isn't always the most desirable, but I think it adds to um, dialogue, and for people who watch it can get perspectives that they might not have gotten before. So, um, starting out, what was your original reaction when you first heard or saw the video of George Floyd, and what did you think would happen to the police officer involved?
Um, I guess, not even to be like, generic or whatever, but I pretty much had the same, disgusted reaction as a lot of other people. Yeah, it's disgusting to me that somebody, see someone that looks like me in this, in that sort of situation. Even I don't know the situations I've had with police, like that is it's very possible for a situation to escalate and something like that to happen. Back in 2012, I went to a funeral for a friend who was arrested. Um, Say he was causing disorderly conduct or whatever, but he was arrested and he was placed in a mental health complex and instead of in incarcerated. Put him in a mental health complex, and he died in that mental health complex a few days later. I want to say like 3 days later,
Wow,
um, and he died from a broken neck and a blood clot.
really? Wow. That's incredible. I didn't even know that. I mean, I've known you for years, Al, and I didn't know that. That's incredible. And was
Yeah,
there even an investigation involved?
yeah. Obviously, the state is going to do, whatever little bit they're going to do, but his family, his name was Brandon Johnson, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You probably can Google that name and you can look him up.
Yeah.
But his family is still fighting, fighting for justice.
Wow. Wow. So when you saw that video, it kind of hit home. That could be me. That could be my family member. That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Wow. And did you feel like the police officer was just gonna get away with it, or there would be any repercussions, or
Um,
did you feel it was different this time? I guess.
I don't know. I have a pretty cynical attitude when it comes to how things like that are happened. How cops are treated and how their cases are handled in situations like this. I can go on about this. There was, I want to say within this happened. I think this had to be like in 2013, maybe 2014. A black man was shot here in Milwaukee,
Hmm.
Red Arrow Park. Um, he was sleeping on the bench, and somebody working at a Starbucks nearby called the police because,
They
hey,
felt
why is this bum?
uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why is this man sleeping on the bench? And after his confrontation with the police, um, this man, I'm trying to remember his name. Anyways, he was shot. I believe like 14 times.
Wow.
Um, all these fatal gunshot wounds were to the back.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Um, turns out he did have some mental health issues,
Oh yeah,
which is
that was
yeah, I mean, which
that,
obviously leads to him sleeping, on
right.
yeah,
And that's the thing, like, a lot of there's a lot of people that I think look like me and that say, Alaba, we don't have a problem with race, we have a problem with mental health in this country. And to those
hmm
people, I say, well, you can have a problem with mental health, but it can disproportionately affect people of color who might not have access to the same things. And then on top of it, when police um, see a black male, I believe with all my heart that our culture teaches us to associate blackness with violence and blackness with a threat.
yep, as a threat.
And so um, when you have someone who has a mental health disorder, um, they're not going to be logical. They're not going to follow directions. They're not in their right mind, right?
Yeah,
And
especially this young man. I think Dontrell. I'm gonna say Dontrell Harris. I don't know, something like that. I know his first name is Dontrell, but
Mhm.
I mean, probably being spooked by the cops, and I'm
Right.
pretty sure the cop that accosted him was not just your friendly neighborhood beat cop. You know what I mean?
Right. And the thing is that you don't have to have a conscious, in my experience, as a white person, you don't have to have a conscious thought like, okay, this person is, I don't like this person, or this person deserves to be mistreated or something. It's just something that has been ingrained in our society for so many hundreds of years that,
hmm
and I'm not saying it, I'm not justifying it, by the way. I'm just saying I believe it exists. And so there, those people with mental health disorders, especially people of color, I think end up dead and abused so much more often because
Oh
a
yeah.
police
Mm.
officer is trained to use a gun. A police officer is trained to use force. A police officer isn't trained on mental health in many states longer than an 8-hour class. And so we just see the bodies just piling and piling it up, and people say, well, white people get killed by the cops too, and they do, but not at the same ratios. Especially, what are black people, 13% of the population, give or take, in the
Yeah,
United
yeah, for
States?
the U.S. population. Yep.
Yeah. And it just makes me sick to my stomach. And you know what are your thoughts on that?
Um, it's definitely sickening. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like whenever I'm driving in my truck, and if it's snow, I don't drive. No, nothing with flashy rims and
A
just
stereotypical
stuff. And yeah, yeah,
stereotypical black
yeah,
man car.
yeah, yeah. I mean, well, as far as stereotypical black man car, I mean that could be something even like an old Buick, like a late '90s Buick. I
Right.
mean, but no, I mean for the most part, my truck blends in and stuff. But like when I'm driving, like I take an inventory of every vehicle around me, even though I'm legit. I mean, I have my license, everything, but I take an inventory every vehicle around me. Obviously, if a cop car gets behind me, I'm not gonna just dump off or nothing like that. But even so, I mean, I'm just mindful, and then even if I do end up in a situation where I'm dealing with an officer, then I mean, my first thing I'm doing is I'm disarming myself right away. I'm making myself transparent and disarming myself. Um, that basically comes from like a conversation and I had with my mom and an article that she gave me like
When you
back when
were
I
when
first
you were
started
a
driving.
teenager, or?
Yep, yep. When I first
Okay.
started driving, when I was 17, like you will be pulled over at some point, and I basically follow protocol from what I read. I always keep my hands visible on the steering wheel unless they tell me to relax or whatever. Um, Say for instance, it asks for my license and registration. Okay, I'm gonna reach in my right pocket,
Right.
put my hands here, and reach in my right pocket, and
Right.
I'm gonna pull out my wallet, and then I'm gonna give you my license. Registration, I'm gonna reach over into the glove compartment,
Mhm.
center console, wherever it may be.
You
But
have to
always,
become a play-by-play person for your own actions.
yeah, yep. You play by play, mean turn on, the dome light and everything,
Hands on the steering
and
wheel.
yep.
Yeah. No, and I never had to have that. My parents never had to have that talk with me. Um, uh, obviously, in just living in our society and following, television or media, I put my hands on the steering wheel too when the cop comes. But my dad and mom didn't have to sit me down one day and tell me how it worked. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Um, and that's something I think a lot of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of, or most of even Black families have to have with especially their teenage sons.
Oh yeah,
More than
especially
the
yeah, especially young men. Absolutely.
hmm Yeah, and that and like I'm me, I'm a big psychology guy. I'm a big why do we behave the way that we do? And in this last summer, I was reading a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's all about trauma and how it affects us. And people, when they think of trauma, they think going to war or being in a an earthquake or a natural disaster. Well, we
A
can
traffic
experience.
accident,
Yeah, exactly.
anything.
We can have traffic accidents. We can have micro trauma day after day after day after day our entire life. And what happens is that builds up. Okay. And I don't want to speak for you, but when you were telling me how when you're riding in the car, you're constantly, keeping tabs and it it's called they call that hypervigilance. And it's a aspect of trauma that is totally natural, um, and that wears on people day in and day out and day in and
Oh
day out.
yeah, yeah. It
Um,
definitely does.
and I have trauma, not regarding police, okay, but and I'm in certain situations I'm hyper vigilant, but as a white guy sitting out here looking at Black people being uh the way they're treated by police many times, not always. um a white observer in my experience seems to say, well, why don't you just comply? Why don't you just follow directions? Why don't you just blah 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 blah? And in my view, they're looking at the situation on how they're treated by the police, on how we're treated by the police. And in my experience, like the cops treat me like gold. Like I've actually had them like apologize to me for them just doing their job. And so we don't have that same trauma experience. We don't know somebody who got killed by the police as often. We don't have we when we see that video, we don't see of George Floyd, we don't say that could be me, right? Whereas you do. And so to me, that I understand more when a Black guy is pulled over, especially if he's being pulled over all the time by the cops, or messed with by the cops, why he has that immediate like resistance, if you will. Okay. I think it is safer to be like you and come and just follow directions so you don't die, right? But who am I to say, well, you should just do everything they say always, no matter what? Because that's giving away our rights many times when we haven't done anything wrong, right? Can you talk about that a little
Yep.
bit?
Yeah, I mean, no, that happens. I mean, I can think of another young man, Philando Castile.
Exactly.
Same same geographic area as George. I think he was in the Twin Cities area.
Mm-hmm.
He was pulled over. He was riding in a car with his girlfriend and his baby girl in the back. She was like 3 or 4 at the time.
Speaking of
Get
trauma,
Yeah, and they get pulled over. It's a traffic stop, and like even before he is blasted to death in front of his girlfriend and his baby, she's calmly recording on Facebook because of probably previous experiences.
Exactly.
And even this gentleman himself, he told the officer that he, he legally owned the firearm and that he had it on him, not on his person, but that he had
Right.
it on him. And next thing, situation escalates and he's getting shot. Like, this officer, I don't know what
Repeatedly.
the hell is going through this head. Like, yeah, repeatedly. Like,
Mhm.
he's not even thinking about, the young woman in the driver's seat, the baby girl in the back seat.
Mhm. And he was doing
And
and he was doing everything that you is that what you were about to say? Like he's saying, "Hey, I'm going to reach in this in the glove box to
well,
get
man,
the."
I didn't really see him reach for anything. Like I said, he was in the passenger
Oh
seat.
yeah, no, he said
But
he
what
was
I do
going
know
to.
is that he did. Hmm.
Right. And just
Yep.
the verbal adding to the visual, the officer felt in fear of his life and decided to dispatch of him. And that brings up another point. If you take um if you take a white guy, okay, who grows up in a city where there's hardly any black, let's say there's no black people, or let's say there's like one or two black families, right? And then you put him in and then he
Hmm.
applies to a police force and he's going to calls where it's a predominantly black and Latino neighborhoods, time after time after time after time. Because of the way of our media, our movies, our politics, our system in general is set up. Ask a white person who's gone to a basketball game in a predominantly black area, and they're the only black person or the only white person in the entire gym. Or they go to a church and they're the only white person in the whole. They, they, I've done that before, and I'm not immune to the society that we live in. There's been times that I've felt uncomfortable, but I have to ask myself, like, why am I feeling uncomfortable? Is it because I'm a minority and I'm not used to being a minority, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is you take that white guy, you put him in that situation, and then people, some black guys he sees walking on the side of the street, that's been programmed into his mind. People who look like them are violent. If he questions them, if he stops them or whatever, and they push back, right? Not physically, but you know what I mean. Um, he immediately fears for his life, right?
Hmm.
So I don't disagree that in many situations cops fear for their lives. I believe that they shouldn't have the right to kill someone because they fear for their lives, because they shouldn't be fearing for their lives to begin with just because a black man isn't following their directions.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you have a government issued 9 millimeter taser,
Exactly.
baton, bulletproof vest, pepper spray. I mean, if I have that on me, I mean, I want to be like Batman. I'm not feeling threatened.
Right, right, right. And we, power corrupts. When you have almost unlimited power, you are the law, and if you do something wrong, you not gonna get sent to prison. Which we see 99.99 times out of 1,000. Um,
You
y-
know?
that when they, look at Castile, the guy who killed Castile, like he didn't go to prison. He got fired, right? But
I think, yeah, he got fired, but I'm
but
pretty
yeah,
sure.
he's not going.
I
He's not
mean,
facing
when he
any
got
charges.
fired, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I mean,
No, he's not
and I
facing any
doubt
charges.
and I doubt he's like really financially struggling. You know what
Right,
I mean?
right.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he got a nice settlement.
Oh well, there was a police officer in I forget the state, but there was a kid in a hotel, and he had invited some friends over, and he worked for some company, and they used like paintball guns for some reason, and he was showing it to them, and someone out in the street saw him holding this gun and called the cops. And the cop that came was like, he went immediately Rambo. Okay, so he pulled his weapon and he's like, you know, back up. And he was telling him all these conflicting things. And the dude was drunk, and so he couldn't understand everything. And then he was telling him like, back up, dude. And like his pants started to fall down, and he like tried to pull his pants up, and the cop just unloaded, unloaded and killed him, right? And the cop is now on disability for mental trauma from the police department. And I'm just like, dude, like, you killed a dude in cold blood, and now you're getting checks every month. Like, that's the system that we live in, you know. And qualified immunity, and like these protests over the summer, right? Like, here we are today, and how has qualified immunity been taken away? It hasn't been taken away. It's still there on the books in every state that I'm aware of. And I'm like, what is there to do? Like, what is it? What can we do? And it just makes me really sad, and I don't understand. And then when people, there's one other point that I was trying to make, but I can't remember. But anyway, go ahead. I went off on a tangent there. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Even remember where I was going.
No, you're fine.
What was, I don't know, I guess you have to read the question that you just asked me.
Yeah, no, what do you like? There was so many people who marched in those demonstrations, okay? And a lot of them were white people, okay? But at the end of the day, as white people, we can go back to our communities and not think about race, right? That's almost never an option for a person of color in the US, because they're always the minority. So I've seen some backlash online of Black people calling out white people who post little things and do little feel good messages, but like, there's no actual action in their everyday life. What's your feelings on that? And do you have any suggestions for, an average white person that they can actually do in an actual way to help?
I mean, as far as, I don't know. I mean, it's just such a broad subject, but as far as, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I were to give advice to somebody, white, as how to, view somebody of color, view them as another person. I mean, obviously, we've known each other for 20 years, but I mean, even, back when I met you, we were kids at Southern. Like, I didn't look at you. It was just white dude. You know what I mean? Like, I can look at you as a person. You know what I mean? I mean, granted, I was raised that, to be able to look at people that way. I was raised to, be aware, of what's going on around me, and even, if and when I experience, some sort of racism on any level, I know well enough that not everybody is going to be that way.
Right.
So I don't know, just try not to treat people as a monolith, and look at people as a monolith, and treat people as you like to be treated. I mean, simple as that. I mean, I know it's much easier said than done.
No, I understand what you're saying.
I mean, personally, I'm a 6'4", dark-skinned Black dude. I like to wear hoodies.
Right.
So, I mean, if I get on elevator with somebody, and whatever.
Are they clutching
and
their
I'm just
purse?
kind of, if I get on the elevator, okay, I think I'm a robber or whatever. But
Right.
at the same time, I'm going to disarm myself, not because of any, whatever, basically to ease anybody else's tension.
Yeah.
My guess that's part of my personality, anyways. Is if even if you were to introduce me to like a group of your friends, and whatever, I'm gonna go around like, yo, what's up, and sort of disarm myself, but make myself like cool with everybody, and you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and kind of open myself up.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think also, and I'm, trust me, I'm not here to pat myself on the back. I genuinely care about, the topics that we've been talking about. I think the best thing that people who look like me can do is have these conversations, the conversations that you and I are having right now, and
Yep.
it's even okay if
Conversations
if
do.
we disagree, because we're not always going to agree on something. However, just having the
Mhm.
conversation sets, I think, uh, sets some people at ease, and it pushes through the discomfort. As white people, and I'm going to speak for all white people here. Um, we are so afraid of being uncomfortable, that
Mhm.
it hurts us. And I'm not comparing it to what people of color go through in this country, but it hurts us in the fact that we can't overcome something, um, if we don't address it, if we don't acknowledge it. Okay, so I don't know if you saw Dave Chappelle on Saturday Night Live last month, but in one of his skits, this white guy says to him, "Hey, it's okay. It's not you. It's it's not anything you've done. It's what you make us feel about what we've done to you." And I thought that summed it up perfectly. White people, they call it white guilt
Yeah,
or
I
whatever.
remember that sketch. Yep.
Yeah, they call it white guilt or whatever, and some
Mhm.
people like try to make fun of that. But like, there's nothing wrong with trying to understand a perspective that you don't experience, especially someone's perspective who might have a lot more negative experiences with the police or with certain situations than you have. And it's not to say that white people don't experience, um, mistreatment or are poor or suffer, because white people
Mhm.
do, right? But it's very, very, very rare that a white
Because classism is very real.
Exactly, but it's very rare that a white person experiences mistreatment because of their color. It's almost always because of
Yeah.
their class, um, and so on and so forth. And I have a friend of mine that
Mhm.
I went to school with who's white, and you know, so far in his life he's been very poor, and he has some of the same stories about mistreatment by the police. The difference is that it doesn't lead to violence against him. He
Yeah.
still gets pulled over, he still gets bothered, he still gets false charges, and they're trying to find any little thing about him, because the police, they take advantage of communities that are lower social economic, and so they, and he has some of the same stories, but he's never been physically accosted, he's never been shot, he's never been, put a knee in his neck, so um
Mhm.
yeah, I know I've thrown a lot at you there, but that's kind of where I'm coming from as far as what white people can do. We have to have these conversations. We have to get to know people, and it doesn't even have to be a black person. It could be a Latino person or an Asian person, or
Just gain some outside perspective.
exactly perspective, because we don't, in this country, and I've told you this before, Alba, we are one of the most segregated countries in the world, based on where we live. Okay,
Absolutely.
white people live near white people, black people live near black people, and someone say, well, there's a community now I know, and there's mixed. Of course there's mixed communities,
Yeah, there's
however,
mixed
they're
communities,
they're
but
the they're the exception to the rule. If
mhm.
you look, you can go on Google right now and look at a map of our nation based on race, and
Trust me.
it's just especially, and I think Milwaukee is one of the most
I was
segregated
just about to say,
in the whole
like
country.
in our country, being segregated, like me being in the Midwest,
Hmm.
Milwaukee and Chicago are, among the most segregated.
Hmm. Yeah,
And yeah, not just like Milwaukee, there's the Waukesha, Brookfield area. Um, there's the West Dallas, Greenfield
mhm.
area, all just crazy segregated.
Yeah, and like once again, me growing up, if it wasn't for being going to school with people of color, okay, because I
Hmm.
growing up I lived in a incredibly white areas. I mean, like there was no people of color, and then when I got to high school, it was almost like 50-50 in my academy, okay, and that was new for me, right? And if
Hmm.
I didn't have the opportunity to meet those
Yeah.
people and see how they were just like me, if I met them as an adult without having any of that experience, I would plug in all the stereotypes that the media has programmed into my
Hmm.
brain, not because I hate black people, right? But if I have
But
so
that's just what the media does.
exactly, exactly. So if I didn't have any of that experience, when I saw a black male with a hoodie, um, and Timberlands and a sideways hat, in my mind, I would be like, oh, that guy's a thug. Okay. But because I met so many people that dressed like that and weren't thugs and were super kind and super nice and treated me with respect. Now when I see someone like that, I'm like, no, they're probably not. Now, could they be? Of course they could be, but instead of just
Hmm.
drawing that conclusion immediately, now I can give that person the benefit of the doubt, right? And that doesn't mean that I've arrived or I'm better than anyone, but
But you're just
it
more likely to give people benefit of the
exactly,
doubt.
exactly. And if they end up being a thug or a bad person, that doesn't represent all black people. That represents
Hmm.
that one person, right? Just like if I meet a white woman at the supermarket and she acts crazy, she doesn't represent all white people either. She's just a crazy white lady, right? So
Hmm.
anyway, uh, in closing here, do you have any like experiences with you personally with the police as far as good or bad or anything that comes to mind for you personally?
Yeah. Yeah, man, I've had plenty of experiences. I mean, like one of my first like experiences as an adult was really bad. Was dropping a buddy of mine off. He lived in the shady side of town. He lived
Mhm.
in the hood, but even so, him living in the hood, we could like throw a football like down the street and it would hit District 7 of the Milwaukee Police Department. So
Okay.
police station was right there. But anyways, dropping them off and this had to be, it was after 1 in the morning, before 2, but like, super late. And we were sitting, talking for a while, just kind of just reflecting on things. He was a new father at the time. Like I was just fresh home from school and, just talking about life and stuff. And we're talking, squad car rolls by, we don't think nothing of it because, we're right by the police station.
Right.
So he's probably just on the beat or whatever. And we continue talking and then rolls by again. And like I said, like we're on the corner, like his house is on the corner of 35th and Hour. So like police station, like right there.
Right.
You get him long enough tape measure or, it's going to be knocking at the door. But, he rolls by again, don't really think anything of it. And then as he pulls off, he hits the brakes, then backs up, turns the spotlight on, like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah. The dreaded feeling.
Yep, yep, yep. And rolled the window down and he just asked, what's going on, whatever. And he was like, nothing, officer. I live right here at this house. This is my house. I live upstairs. Like, again, this is my house right here.
Having to
And he's
justify
showing him,
your existence.
yeah, yeah. And we explained, to the officer that, I'm dropping him off and gonna be heading home. Actually, he was driving the car because he wanted to drive my car for some reason, but so he's the first one talking to the officer, and then the officer's like, okay, that's fine, but you have some ID, and then he's like, I mean, why? I mean, I live right
Right.
here,
I'm not
and
committing a crime. I'm not suspected
yeah,
of committing a crime.
and I don't know, for some reason that must set that cop's medulla oblongata off because he took offense to that, and he has my buddy out of the car. All right, buddy, come out of the car. And this time, another squad pulls up, and we have a little situation here. So they take him out, and they're patting him down and stuff. They put him in the squad. While they're doing all that, I'm sitting in the passenger seat because I said he wanted to drive my car. So um, another officer rolls up to me, and at this time, there's like 4 squads.
Of course, they got to call half the
Yeah, even though they
department.
could have like just walked out from their from their cubicles and shit up the street. Excuse my language. But anyways, we have like a small percentage of this little precinct on our tails, and officer comes up to me. He's asking my information and everything, and he's asking for my ID. So mind you, like he's in the window leaning in talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
I have the dome light on and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
like he has a whole team with him. So he's asking for me to get my wallet. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to reach here and grab it. So as I'm reaching to grab my wallet, these 2 other officers that they got out their squad car, which is like at the corner, and they parked their cars facing at the corner in case we had tried to run off.
Right,
Even though
right.
where are we going to run when we're down the street from the police station? But anyways, um, they get out, um, kick the doors open, get behind their doors, pull their pistols out,
What?
start screaming at me, get my
They pulled
effing
their
hands up on the
guns?
dash, and I'm like, dude, like,
Oh,
talk to your boy over here, man. Like,
that's scary
you,
as hell, dude.
oh hell yeah, it's scary. And he's screaming at me, like they got their guns out. Like 2 officers got out, just like in the cop shows we see, get behind their doors and they got their pistols pointed, screaming at me. While this other officer, I could tell he was young and not as experienced as the other ones. He's like, you gonna give me your idea of like you want to call your buddies off so they don't blow my head off? And
He wasn't as
um,
biased as they were yet. Yet.
no, yeah, yeah,
He still
no,
was, just not to their level.
yeah, he wasn't on their level because the other dude, he was like the cop that was closest to me and had his gun on me. He had to be like in his mid 50s or so at the time. Big gut, big old
Right,
Mike Dick mustache. Probably
right,
30 years on the force.
right.
But this other cop, he was like in his mid 20s. So after all this goes down, and they finally calm down, and after I mean, it's only grace of God they ain't shoot me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only grace of God they ain't shoot me. So another officer comes up and asks me to step out. Like, sir, you mind stepping out? And of course, I step out. The officer's like 5'7", so of course, uh, get another, gets his partner or whatever, and they come in, handcuff me, slam me up against the car, and pat me down or whatever. But even though I'm already handcuffed, then they throw me in the back of the squad, which if anybody's been in the back of a police squad, not a fun
Dehumanizing.
place to be. Yeah, yeah. Um, just horribly uncomfortable. I mean, people in my city have died in police custody just in the
Right,
back of a squad car, just
right.
for whatever reasons. But horrible experience. I'm in there like with
What did they say you
my
had done or suspected of?
No, no, I'm gonna get to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So like I'm cuffed. I mean, your show is called The Interruption, so you
Exactly.
know.
My show is called Interruption.
But no, man, I'm cuffed. You know, behind my back. I'm sitting in the back seat, and you know, I'm not a short guy, so I'm kind of like, you know, trying to like sit diagonal, you know, so I can get some sort of comfort. And meanwhile, like they're going, you know, through my name and stuff. Ocean, Sam, Henry, Ocean, Gregory, trying to, phonetically, spell my last name and all that crap. And just asking me questions. And I'm asking them questions back like, yo, what is going on here? Like, you know, can you tell me what's going on? And they're getting hostile with me. Like, also the driver's seat, like, was basically cussing me out and getting pissed because I had a clean record.
Mm-hmm. Because it makes
So
them
they
look
cussed me
bad.
out. Yeah, they cussed me out. And like I said, it's about good 45 minutes in the back of the squad.
Damn.
They let us go and they give me a parking ticket
What?
because I was, within like 5 feet of the stop sign.
Wow.
Yeah,
They
so
had to
yeah,
they
that's
had to
what they
find
do.
something or else they wouldn't feel okay
Yeah,
about themselves.
yeah.
Wow. I'm
But
so
like on the flip side, I mean, I've had a not so bad experience with a cop where
hmm
he pulled me over because my plates were expired because I had it was an old truck I had and that sucker wouldn't pass emissions and I wasn't investing all that money for that crap. But so my plates were expired and the officer came up and talked to me like another thing like when I you know I do have the unfortunate experience of getting pulled over. Um, as stressful as it can be. I mean, I talk to the officer like I'm talking to you. Like, look, dude, like, I'll be honest with you. My plates are expired, which you already know, but, you know, I still had to get to work, do what I need to do. They're expired just because, I mean, I have a straight pipe running from my headers. So my truck's going to fail emissions. I can't afford to fix it. And he's like, all right, man, I can dig that, man. It's cool. It's cool. Just sit tight for a second. And then he came back probably about 5 minutes later. He's like, look, man, like, if I give you a ticket for your emissions, like, it's just going to make it even harder for you to get you fixed. But
hmm
I got to give you a ticket for something. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to give you a seatbelt ticket, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, man, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you looking out. I understand, that's part of your job you got to do, but it sucks sometimes. But, I appreciate you looking out. And I got the $10 seatbelt ticket.
Okay, so it's a lot cheaper than the emissions ticket.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that he could have like really hemmed me up because I didn't have my registration and all that
hmm
stuff. And I mean, I don't know how it works in Tennessee, but like registration and cars, then it's it can be a big hurdle for people up here. Especially men, like if you owe for child support, anything like that, like you it's all the way the system
Yeah.
works. Like,
No, the system makes it criminal to not have money.
yeah, like yeah, like yeah. I mean, long story short, I basically operate as a corporation.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Interesting. Well, man, we gotta cut it short here, but would you be willing to come back sometime and talk some more?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely, man. I'll find a better setting instead of the basement and people not singing "Happy Birthday"
Happy
upstairs. But
birthday.
yeah, man, I'm definitely down, man.
Okay, cool. We might have you on with some other people and kind of do like a round table. But
Yeah, man, get me on with Dan, man. That's my old college roommate. I haven't spoken to that cat in
yeah,
years.
yeah. I want to get you on with Dan and then my friend Phil as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I watched your other podcast, your other episode. It was pretty good, man. It was
Okay,
well
I
done.
appreciate it. I
So
gotta
yeah,
upgrade my
hopefully
camera
I
and
can be of some contribution.
I appreciate it. I gotta upgrade my camera and microphone, but one day I'll do that. But
Mm.
no, I've noticed, and just wrapping up here, I just noticed I deal my whole life. I've worked with the public and customers, and I still do that in my job, and I noticed that when you just treat somebody like a human being, the initial action, um,
Hmm.
it 9 times out of 10 just totally breaks down the barriers. Okay, and we all have barriers, right? But
Yeah, we all do.
I would argue that people who've experienced a lot more mistreatment might legitimately have more barriers because they don't want to have more mistreatment, right? And when you,
Yeah, I mean
uh,
logically, but like on the flip side, there's people that have been through a lot
that's true. That's true.
who like have that gain perspective to where I mean you're definitely not gonna just come at them sideways or whatever, but they're gonna be like they're respectful.
Right. No, you're right. My
Um,
my my, my mistake on that.
and
Um,
that actually like goes back to the point that you were just making. Like even like me person, like every walk of life I've been in, it's basically been the same with people. Like I'm a respectful guy, and I get respect.
mhm.
Um, Even in the worst of situations. I mean, we could go on about this. I mean, I remember being with some buddies of mine. We were in the car on the south side. We were pulled over, trying to figure out what we were about to do next, and like zoom, 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 like three, four cars, all of them sub and pull up on us and surround us. So we can't drive off. They surround us, and again, this is one of the situations where guardian angel was definitely looking out for me. But um, these gangster looking dudes got out. These we're on the south side, so they look more kind of like some cholos, some rough looking dudes, and some of them spoke Spanish. But I got out. My best friend got out, and we just looked at each other like, okay, let's just go say what's up to him, and we was keeping 100 with him. So I went up and like, yo, what's going on, fellas? We just, I don't know if we're parking in your spot, whatever. And man, I mean, I might shine your window if y'all don't jump on us. But no, it turns out that they were just renting his grandmother's garage for a parking space, and they were just coming to park the car.
And why did and forgive me, why did they surround you?
Oh, because like they didn't recognize the car we were in, and yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because we were in the alley, and like I said, this is the south side of Milwaukee,
Okay.
so yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, no, I think if a cop, and I don't want to say that it would solve everything, right? But I think there'd be a huge improvement if cops, when they initially made the um, what do they call it, engagement or conversation, if they just
mm-hmm,
came at it in a positive, respective, there's always going to be somebody who acts crazy to the cop, even when he's respectful. We know that, but I would say that a lot less people would, um, when they come in a respectful tone and a respectful demeanor, and so on and so forth. So when they come out just swinging and blazing and condescending and talking down and
yeah,
you know um, that just and then it's dehumanizing, it's disrespectful, and just like
it
when
is
you
like in
just like when you were in the back of that cop car, when you get thrown, when you got handcuffed, when you got pushed up against it, when you got the guns pulled up, at the end of the day, you went home and you lived, and that's great. But I bet you felt a little or a lot less of a person after that experience. I don't, that night or, I don't know for how long, because I know I would. I would feel like I was being treated less than, and I didn't deserve it. And, that's got to weigh on somebody's heart. If you didn't feel that way, then that's fine too. But I know I would.
The other night I was definitely angry. Like my boy, one who was who I was with that night, like we got on the phone, we talked for like 2 hours, 3 hours of the morning after that happened, and I mean we were both angry. I mean I know he told me he shed some tears because he was that angry.
Yeah.
Me, it was kind of eye opening. Because I mean, it just made me, it just opened my eyes to the fact that like, they could have just wasted me and
For nothing.
yeah, for
For absolutely
nothing,
nothing.
and I would have, yep, and if it would have, if there would have been, any, I won't say backlash, but let's say if it would have made the news or something. Let's say that situation would have went south and it had made the news. They would have dug up any thing I had on my record and tried to vilify me even
Right.
more.
A character
And
assassination
mhm,
in arrears in the past.
yep, and even even I've even heard from the same friend who who I was almost arrested with. He's worked for the city, with the police department, and as a meter maid and just in other capacities. And he's even told me that if the cops don't want to do a big investigation on the body they find or something like that, place a bag of whatever drug, which
Mm-hmm.
pick your take your pick, whether it be heroin, coke, even not necessarily bud, but something like that.
And they
Put
even
that
do
on
it
them,
when
and
they even do it when the body camera's on. We have video
hmm
of cops doing that online when they're on
yep,
video. So imagine what they're willing to do when they're not on video. It's
absolutely,
unconscionable.
yep,
Anyway, well, we got to run here, man. But once again, it's Alaba from Wisconsin. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. And
absolutely.
yeah,
You
and
rocking that Patriots hat, man.
we got to do this again. Hey,
Yeah.
I gotta show that I'm not a bandwagon rider. So now that we suck,
Hey, man, that's what's up,
now
man.
that we
I'm
suck,
I'm
so
still a Chicago Bulls fan, and you know,
it happens, right? The glory
happens.
years, and then you go
Hey,
silent.
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting.
All right, man. Well,
All right, bro. Much love.
yeah. Have a good night, and all my viewers will have another episode up here in a few weeks.
Absolutely.
All right.
Peace out, everybody.
All right.